Hi guys, as part of your homework tonight, you guys are going to work with the graph paper that I gave you. If you don't have any graph paper, you can create some just on regular pieces of paper. But tonight's homework is to create a line graph based on some information that I give you. And you're going to use this video to remember all the important steps to make sure that you have all the components to a correct way to show that information. And so a line graph, though, excuse me. A line graph, though, is a visual way to show change over a period of time. And so the data that I have down here, the amount of students in 5th grade at Oak Hill School, shows how many students were enrolled at this school each month over the course of a school year. So by creating a line graph from this, I'm able to see the rise in enrollments, the decrease in enrollments as each month passes. So maybe I can see some months where we have a greater amount of students or lesser amounts of students. Okay, so on your grid, remember that one of the important things that we have to do is we have to think about obviously what our title is. A lot of times you get your titles from the data that's displayed, the amount of students in 5th grade at Oak Hill School. And so first you want to start off by thinking about your y-axis, the one that I'm pointing to here, and your x-axis. If you remember back from our data, we had 9 months. I have 9 months here of data. So I have to think about taking my x-axis, the one right here, and dividing it into 9 sections. And then I also have to think about my y-axis and the amounts, how I'm going to separate that out with the amount of numbers. Okay, so as you can see here, what I've done is I've taken each month and I've separated them along my x-axis because I know that I'm going to have these data points up here representing the numbers of how many students were enrolled each month. And I decided to separate them with a blank spot in between. And as you can see, sometimes that helps when I'm reading a graph. If I have some areas just so it's not all crammed together, so that way I can easily read it and it's neat. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to determine my y values. And so what you want to do is I'm looking at my highest y value, and that looks like a 49 right here. That looks like my highest y value. And then my lowest y value, my lowest number, is a 37. So I'm ranging in numbers between 49 and 37. And so what I want to do is I want to think, okay, how can I best represent these numbers on my y-axis? And obviously I can't do one number at a time because I don't have enough. I can't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I don't have enough space. And so I'm going to have to determine a scale. And a scale means that maybe I might count by 2s, or maybe I might count by 5s or 10s or something like that. So if I think about it, and if I want to count by 10s, well, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, I'm really only going to be using the numbers between the 30s and the 50s. So that really wouldn't be an effective use of my grid. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to count by 5s, and that will be the best use of my scale, or best use of my grid that I have for my graph. Okay, so now as you can see, I decided to choose by counting by 5s. So that way I'm at least able to use the scale between 30 and 50 the best. So I'm still going to at least be able to spread that out like that. And so my scale is counting by 5s. So when you're creating your graph today, you're going to want to think, what am I using an appropriate scale? Am I making the best use of my whole entire space of my grid? Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to start plotting my data points, and all of my data points are found here on my chart. So I'm going to start going with August. August had 45 students. So let's see here. I'm going to go with August 45. So I'm probably going to want to place a dot. I probably need to move my months over just a little bit so they're lined up with where they're crossing. So let me do that real quick here. We're just going to slide them over just a tad. Good move, Mrs. Stegman. I'm going to slide them over just a tad so that way I can place my dots where lines would intersect. That means cross. Okay, so August had 45 students. September had 38. Now, I don't have a number that's 38, so I'm going to have to estimate just a tad. I know that 38 is going to fall between 35 and 40. The numbers that fall in between are 36, 37, 38, and 39. So it's closer to the 40 side. So it's just going to be a little bit of an estimate right there. Okay, October is at 40. So here's that number. November's 41, so it's just going to be slightly above. Let's see here. December dropped down to 37, so I'm going to go 35, 36, 37. That'd probably appear about right there. January would be 48. Ooh, almost at 50. We're just right below 50 here. And February's 49, right underneath 50. So February, whoops, there we go. And let's move this here. March is 46, so we're going to drop down to just above that. And 45 and 45. So here I have my 45 and my 45. The next thing that I want to do now is to start connecting my dots. Now I don't have a straight edge here on my graph or making it on my Promethean board, so I'm going to connect them. You guys should be able to draw a much straighter line than what I have going here. So I'm going to draw my connectors. I'm going to connect all of my data points to create my line graph. Again, you guys should be able to create a much nicer line graph than what I have here because I don't have my straight edge and I'm doing this freehand with my mouse. So once you've created your data points and collected them, there's one last thing that I need to do here, and I need to label my axes. So I need to label and state what these numbers are and these months here, okay? So I'm going to type here months of the school year. So I'm going to label my x-axis, and then I'm also going to label my y-axis, and that's going to be the numbers. What do they represent? Well, they represent the number of students. Okay, and I'm going to give that a little turny turn and move it on over. Okay, and so now I have my completed line graph here that shows the representation of which months had the most amount of students and where I'm going to experience my dip in enrollment and things like that. Okay, so for your homework tonight, you're going to be creating a line graph based upon this data set. We have the amount of animals that were housed in the kennel per year. And so we start with the year 2000, and we had 240, 2001 had 192, 2002 had 210, 2003 had 250, 2004 had 235. So some of the things you need to remember, these are the different things that we're going to be looking for on your completed homework for tonight, is that you have a title for your graph, that you are able to label your x-axis with a title, so that means the x-axis is down here, so that needs to have the title. Here it's months of the school year. What will your x-axis be? You need to label the x-axis with your values. For this one we had the months, August, September, October, November, December, and so on. You need to label your y-axis with the title and your values. So on this one here, we had a title, number of students, and the values were these numbers here. You also need to make sure you determine an appropriate scale for your graph. That's going to be very important with this homework tonight because you have higher numbers. So you need to ask yourself, what's going to be the best thing for my graph? Okay, so here I counted by 5s. What's going to be the best thing for you guys? You need to then, once you've completed all these parts here, then plot your data points based on the data table and then connect your data points. And so that's everything you need to complete for your homework tonight. You guys have 2 pieces of grid paper to help you create your graph. If something goes wrong or you need to use white paper, it's fine. Okay? And we'll take a look at what you're able to create tomorrow morning. Have a great night, guys.